The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and enjoyed your weekend and spent some quality time with your quality people. Anyway, hey, listen, this is pretty funny. I wanted to start off with this because this was pretty awesome. So in the episode I did yesterday, which was just like a quick little, basically just wanting to wish everybody Merry Christmas. One of the things I said on that episode was try and be present yesterday and, stop looking at the phone and really be present with the people that you're with. And, I did that. I do like to practice what I preach, by the way. So I did that. And what I did was my niece and I, we went on a 11,000 step walk all around their neighborhood. And she's really into birds these days. She loves birds. So we basically went on this awesome walk where she pointed out all these birds, took pictures of it, told me about them. Man, the girl knows more about birds than I think I've ever known in my life. But then the other part that was incredibly cool was she's like, okay, let's talk about your podcast. Let's talk about Deep Shallow Dive. What do you really want to get out of this? And what's your goal? And I was like, oh my God, this is a 12-year-old. And I was like, that's an excellent question. That's a truly excellent question. What is my goal out of this? Like, what is the end goal that I'm trying to accomplish with all this? And you know what? I mean, honestly, I can't say I had an immediate, elevator pitch, 30, 60, 90-second answer that I fired off. And I said, well, I'm so consumed right now with coming out with the episodes. She knows about the book. I said, well, I think the book is going to be really great because with the book, it's going to basically just use the awakening that I had because of geopolitics. But with the book, we're going to talk about every aspect of our life and really delve into a deep, shallow dive into you. So I said, hopefully the book will be something. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, what? Yeah, what do I really want out of this? What do I want to accomplish at the end of the day, And I think I realized that, my whole goal for you guys is the same goal I have for myself, actually. And that is to get to a point where I have a really authentic relationship with myself, like I've deep, shallow dove into me and truly with everything I do in every aspect of my life. Again, I'm calling a spade with myself. And so I guess that kind of nets out to personal accountability, nets out to authenticity. I definitely think it touches on integrity, but really, most importantly, it touches on waking up every day and looking in the mirror and honestly liking who you see and really even loving who you see and being authentic with that person and being honest with that person. And here's the thing, and gosh, this is being honest. I'm not saying you wear that stuff all on your sleeve and this is things that you have to be boisterous about in every aspect. It's more about being honest with yourself. It really is. And then you decide where you want to show that honesty with others or that authenticity with others, or really the rawness and the realness of your feelings with others in each situation. And, there might end up being situations where you don't care to share that stuff with others. You want to keep that kind of to yourself, and that's totally cool. But, she really got me thinking, and I'm going to try and come up with even a better reasoning for that or answer to her question. But for now, I really do want to create a community, a platform create tools, create things that can help you get that more authentic relationship with yourself. And it's almost like that inner monologue, that inner voice. I want that thing to be alive. I really do. I want that voice to be alive. And I want that voice to be talking to you and guiding you and having you debate that voice and really listen to that voice, maybe not listen to that voice, but just be alive, like alive and truly, living your life for the moment. I love the phrase carpe diem, seize the day. And that truly is the case. And I think as we get into 2024, I really do think people are going to have awakenings. I really do. I think people are going to have awakenings because I do think that there's going to be a set of things that we've never even experienced. And it's all going to be predicated on this election. This election's going to get wild. I think it is. I really do. So anyway, thank you to my niece for, challenging me and seriously making me think about this thing in a broader scale and just become better at it. Obviously, we're going to continue the podcast. Like I said about the book, I think the book is going to be very cool because, again, it's like 1% geopolitics. Really, geopolitics just became the spark that, woke me up to become an even more authentic version of myself. But the book's it's not going to be a recap of the episodes or anything like that. It's really not going to touch on any of that stuff. It's going to kind of talk about, my journey to get here. And then, like I said, ideally give some tools in order to help you get to where you want to go. So I think that's going to be cool. Could there be eventual retreats? Could there be eventual 3-day summits, 5-day summits? Absolutely. I would love that. I would absolutely love that and try and figure out a way to, truly bring value to people's lives and truly create something that if you attend, you go back and you implement that stuff into your life. And then you continue to, you really continue to check against that on a weekly or monthly basis. Could that be part of this? Absolutely. So anyway, she got me all jazzed up. I appreciated that. And more than anything, I just loved going for a 11,000 step walk with my niece. That was awesome. That was seriously like, I just enjoyed that so much. And it was like the simple things in life. Think about it. We're literally looking at birds, talking about birds, and then having a deep discussion about the meaning of something I'm dedicating a tremendous amount of time to. That was pretty cool. All right, so here's what I'm going to do today, and we're going to crank on it and see how many we can get in, and then that will decide how many more of these episodes we'll do over the next couple days. But, what I thought would be actually useful would be I'm going to do a recap. I'm going to start at episode number 1 and then see how many I can get in basically in 20 minutes and recap the episodes for you guys in a succinct way. This will actually be, I do like the new phrase, repetition is the mother of all learning. I think this will be good to kind of go back and talk about what we talked about. And then also for anybody jumping in that maybe hasn't listened to all the episodes, it'll give you a top line of what we've talked about previously. And that way you can go back and potentially listen to something. But all right, let's go. Episode number 1, my initial episode. This ended up being about the first Republican debate. I will say the big takeaway from that was that I think they all have zero chance. I continue to think they all have zero chance. I continue to think that the only way the Republicans, the GOP as they call them, can win this election is they all drop out, rally behind Trump, and make the Democrats either ban Trump from the election and take away an election from the American people or really force their hand. Okay, episode 2. Episode 2 is probably my favorite and best episode. It actually is the most listened to episode, and this really was my debut episode. And if you haven't listened to that, that really gives you a nice basis to understand me a little bit and to really understand the direction and how this thing started and where we're going to be going. So that's episode 2. Episode number 3, I talk about BRICS Alliance. The BRICS Alliance is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They've also added Saudi Arabia, Iran, and a couple other countries to that recently. But that's a really good episode because this BRICS alliance is important going into 2024. Episode number 4, we talked about central bank digital currency, another, again, very important concept. The concept of central bank digital currencies is basically replacing fiat currency, which is your paper money, dollar bills, y'all, with digital currency. I think that's going to be a huge storyline in 2024. So if you haven't listened to episode number 3 and 4, those are 2 that I truly recommend listening to. Episode number 5 was actually one of my favorite episodes. It was the Ray D Hackathon Guide to Launching Your Own Podcast. So basically in that episode, I pull back the curtain and give you all the things that I did to start the podcast and quite frankly, continue the podcast. Episode number 6, we talked about earning your ears and why you should listen to me. Again, I think that's a good one. You can understand, what I'm trying to accomplish with this. Episode number 7 was a bonus episode, and this was talking about term limits and actually was a build on episode 6 because we really got into term limits. This was due to the whole Dianne Feinstein situation where, basically she just should not have been serving in Congress. Same thing with Mitch McConnell. He still is. He should not be serving. And it really talked about term limits. Episode number 8 actually was a bonus on that. And that was the closure on that. Episode number 9, we talked about deception in the digital age. This was actually really cool because it kind of helps you understand, oh my God, how much fake stuff is out there. And there really is a ton. And I think that's going to get more and more. Episode number 10 talked about Burning Man. It talked about really a build on the previous episode and navigating the world of misinformation. And I think that's going to get tremendously more prevalent in 2024. I think there's going to be so much fake stuff because of artificial intelligence, because of using these voice synthesizer programs, which I use. All the AI stuff, which should be meant for good, is definitely going to be implemented for bad and deception. Episode 11 talked about media bias. I think media bias is a tremendous thing, but it really shed light on how the media can shape narratives. Episode 12 and 13 actually talked about the new kids on the block when it comes to the political arena, and it was a little bit of a dive into Vivek Ramaswamy and RFK Jr. This also was the beginning of me trying to put a debate together with those guys. I put a lot of work into that, but it did not end up happening. Honestly, I think it was a tremendous misstep for both of them. I think had they debated each other when RFK Jr. was still running as a Democrat and then Vivek obviously as a Republican, that would have been the first time that had ever been done. Obviously, later on in the year, Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis debated in a super goofy debate on Fox. But anyway, I think they made a mistake on that. Ironically, episode 14, I did recap all those previous 13 episodes, so I guess I could have skipped all this and just started with episode 14, but that's okay. Repetition is the mother of all learning. Okay, episode 15, here we really talked about Nancy Pelosi again at the age of 83. We talked about how Huntington Beach basically put a preemptive strike against any further COVID mask mandates, vaccine mandates, and then we got into the concept of the G20, the group of countries headed up by the United States, and what that's all about. Episode 16 was actually the first in what I ended up calling Deep Shallow Dive exclusives, and here it was on 9/12, and we really talked about the relevance of 9/11 and talking about how, that really deserves to be longer than one day. So that's the first Deep Shallow Dive exclusive episode 16. And again, I really do recommend the Deep Shallow Dive exclusives because I go even deeper on those. Episode 17, we talked a little bit more about the Vivek RFK Jr. debate because at that time I really thought it was going to happen. We talked about the President Biden impending impeachment, which is still going on, which is just a waste of taxpayer money, and it continues to be. We talked about Senator John Fetterman and just the fact that he wears a hoodie in Congress and that's tolerated. I mean, I just find that not appropriate. Episode 18 was another Deep Shallow Dive exclusive. This one really got into the John F. Kennedy assassination. I called it Unwind the Mystique, the Enigma Explored. Honestly, I think this is a really great episode to listen to, mainly because, in all honesty, I think the mistrust of the public with the government in the United States really started with the Kennedy assassination. That truly is the beginning of a new relationship that the public had with the government. So I think that's worth a listen. Episode 19 was a little bit of a follow-up on that JFK episode as well as the 9/11 episode and kind of connecting the two of them, not connecting them totally, but trying to connect the deeper meanings of the two of them. So that's another good episode to just, I guess, round out the two Deep Shallow Dive exclusives up until that point in terms of 9/11, 9/12, and then JFK. Episode number 20 was another Deep Shallow Dive exclusive. Man, I was on a roll with those exclusives. And this one, again, I loved this episode and I think it's worth listening to. This was about the whole Sound of Freedom movie, Tim Ballard, the child sex trafficking, all of that. Gosh, remember what a controversy that was? And then poof, it's gone. That actually is something else we'll need to talk about. But this episode played a lot of cool clips that I think will really help you understand the Sound of Freedom and that whole situation. Okay, episode 21. This one talked about CNN versus Biden. This was the beginning of, really showing a little bit of a narrative that started to get created that for the first time, you had Democratic-oriented media and organizations kind of taking a shot at Biden, which, has continued for the most part to an extent. I personally think that's all about the potential of him stepping down late next year in July or August, probably for medical reasons, and then having Gavin Newsom step in to take over the nomination. Episode 22, man, another Deep Shallow Dive exclusive. Holy mackerel, I seriously was on an exclusive roll back then. And this one, honestly, I'm going to play this again next year because it's really important. This was the great Bernie Sanders media blackout. And this episode talked about how basically within the Democratic Party, they pretty much blacked out Bernie Sanders in the media in the 2020 election. And that's what led to Biden securing the nomination. COVID happened, and then he won the election. So that's an interesting episode. All right, episode number 23. This was an AI 101 primer. Here I really talked about ChatGPT versus Bard from Google. So if you have any interest in AI, in addition to that episode number 5 where I talked about my hackathon stuff, this would be a great one to listen to. It's episode number 23, which focuses on AI. Episode 24. Okay, this one was a super quick one. I talked about crunching the data and enhancing our future episodes. I actually did end up learning a lot from the data that I was taking in, and I implemented those changes moving forward. So that was cool. Episode number 25. Actually, so 25 and 26 were about the second Republican debate. So if you are interested in debate analysis, listen to episode 25 and 26. Episode 27, actually, this should have been a Deep Shallow Dive exclusive. I didn't mark it as such. But this talked about TikTok, and the title was A Menace to Society or a Trojan Horse. I think this is another theme that's going to get more prevalent in 2024. But this really gave an overview of my thoughts and stances on TikTok. Episode number 28, this was after Dianne Feinstein passed. May she rest in peace. Regardless of what I think of her, may she rest in peace. And this started to talk about the Gavin Newsom slow play that I was seeing, and I mentioned before, where I think there is the potential he slides into the nomination later next year. And then I started actually talking current events in this episode, number 28, and it was the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift episode, which I can't even believe I put that in, but I did. And you know what? I've continued talking a little bit about current events. Okay, episode number 29. This was a funny one. Again, more Gavin Newsom slow play, but it also talked about Democratic Senator Jamal Bowman and how he pulled the fire alarm. Episode number 30 got into Republican House Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and how he got fired on his day off. By the way, people have asked, why do you say that so much? It's actually a line from the movie Friday with Ice Cube and his dad. I don't know. I just find it funny. So Kevin McCarthy gets fired from the speakership. Again, another event that, occupied every ounce of the news, and then poof, it was gone. Okay, episode number 31, actually one of my favorite episodes ever. This was a real talk episode where I had an amazing conversation with an incredibly good friend of mine from high school, Len Spacek, and that conversation really helped me guide my vision. Gosh, that episode and then the talk with my niece over the weekend, those two things they've impacted me. How cool is that? So thanks to Len for that episode. I really got a lot out of our conversation, and that led to, honestly, probably one of my most heartfelt episodes. Okay, episode number 32. This was talking about Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz was the one that really spearheaded getting rid of Kevin McCarthy. So the title was The Matt Gaetz of Heaven or Hell. He goes into beast mode. So that talked about that. Episode number 33. To be honest with you, I thought this episode would get more reaction, but it didn't. It talked about Stanley Meyer, who was the man who invented the hydrogen car. And I thought this was super interesting, but I guess not that many people did. So episode 33, if you have any interest in learning about Stanley Meyer, who invented a hydrogen car and then was murdered, think about that. That's pretty interesting. You can listen to that episode. All right, so I am going to stop here on 33 because episode 34 starts the series on the situation in Israel and Palestine. So I will pick this up tomorrow and start from there. So there's a quick recap, episodes 1 through 33, and then I think actually we'll probably be able to crank the rest out tomorrow. So I thought this was going to take, 3 or 4 episodes to do all 79 episodes. But I think it's only going to take 2. All right, everybody, enjoy Tuesday. Hopefully most of you are off this week and you can continue to spend time with your family and friends and just catch up on the things you need to catch up on and also do a little rest and relaxation. All right, call a spade a spade.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.